Episode number 842, Creating a Chapter of Over 100 Members.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you and where are you?
Well, I'm back from San Antonio from last week. I'm in Austin, Texas. However, I am doing a live event via Zoom in BNI Colombia, so I'm looking forward to talking to our members in Colombia this week.
Oh, great. And who do you have this morning?
We have a guest this week, Shirley Towne. I've known Shirley for a long time. Shirley is the executive director of BNI Midlands of South Carolina. She has grown her region from 379 members to 1,053 members in 6 years. She became a member in 2013. She was the 36th member of the chapter, which this chapter now has 152 members. Oh my goodness. Shirley, welcome to BNI Podcast.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Well, listen, first of all, I'll tell you right up front. But years ago, I would say, chapters of 80 members, I think that's probably the maximum you could get. And then it was 100 members. And then, I saw chapters that were over 100 members. And now we have chapters at 200 members. It's a completely different paradigm, even for me. And I say this because I know there are members listening to this going, oh, yeah, but we couldn't do that. I know there are definitely directors in the United States that think, no, that can only be done in Asia and India. They are totally wrong because you're doing it right there in the Midlands region of BNI. Well done, Shirley.
Thank you so much. We're very proud of them.
I'm really proud of this chapter. I'm very, very impressed by that. So there's a few things that we should talk about. The first is creating the culture of growth. So talk about that.
Yeah. So I think that was our first hurdle. I remember when we first started to grow, people would complain about it getting too big. And
Yeah.
I remember doing this exercise where we had the last 10 members stand up and they stood up. And then I said, raise your hand if you've received a referral from any of these 10 members. And it was almost every single member. And I was like, why would we ever put a lid on this? Like, imagine if we had capped it at 50 or 60, why would we want to do that? And so it was just really changing their mindset to think that we could be more. And but I'll be honest with you, we never, ever had the vision of getting that big. Honestly, when I became president, our vision was to really add 10 members. So maybe we could shave the bottom 10 that weren't performing. And as we set performance standards, we didn't have to. Like, they just rose to the occasion.
They rose. That's impressive that they rose. But I want to get to the heart of the issue for me in terms of growth with a lot of chapters. But they say what you said, which is, we won't get to know each other. We won't do well. So just out of curiosity, Shirley, how much business has the chapter generated in the past 12 months? How much, thank you for closed business?
I just looked at this and it is $21 million and some change, actually.
All right. If you're listening to this podcast, I want you to process that. 21 million US dollars in business in the last 12 months. You can't do that with a chapter of 20 members. But you can do that with a chapter over 100 members. And that's what they're doing in your region, Shirley. That blows me away. I'm really proud. And that's a huge number. And I don't understand why members all around the world wouldn't want to get a piece of that kind of business.
And you just said a piece of that business. And I think that's the thing that is so amazing is when you look at that roster, and I literally can go down the roster and think about amazing stories of crazy, awesome referrals. that they've given and received, but it's not just a few power players. It's all different levels and sizes of businesses referring crazy. My favorite member ever in that chapter was a jewelry lady who has since retired. $750,000 almost every single year she would give.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the average value for a seat in BNI has certainly changed over the years. It's in the tens of thousands on average. But if I do the numbers right, this is six figures
Yes.
for the average value of a seat. Now, look, I get it. The average is average. If your head's in the freezer and your feet are in the oven, on average, you're okay, which
Right.
is not the case. It's average, but still six figures. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's incredible.
Well, our realtor just mentioned that he has hit over the $2 million mark in commissions.
In commissions, not
In
sales, but
commissions.
commissions. Wow.
Correct. Yeah,
Wow.
and he's a huge part of the success of this chapter.
All right. There's so much I want to talk about. So, one of the things that you had on your list is an intentional focus on sponsorship during 7 months check in. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so, we talk so much about bringing a visitor, and this chapter has really changed the mindset to not talk about bringing a visitor, but to sponsoring one within a calendar year.
Mhm.
That's always their goal, is to sponsor one in a calendar year. And so when we do those 7-month check-ins, that's something that we talk about, and that hasn't always been the case. Like, it used to not be talked about. I remember there being a time when we were afraid to even talk about people bringing visitors.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I don't know how many times I've heard this, Ivan. You can be in the green and do everything and not bring a visitor. And that's the one thing that everybody always says. You can do these other 4 things and not bring a visitor and still be in the green. I'm like, why do you choose that one thing? Like, stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
So that's part of the mindset change, is to stop saying things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you one of the things that there are a couple of levers that you can pull that really dramatically increase retention. One is going to member success program training, and the other is bringing in a new member within the first year of membership. And that one surprised me. I've talked about it before, but that one surprised me. But it's because when you bring in an associate or a friend, you want to stay, you want to be there, and so you increase retention by bringing in somebody into a chapter.
That I remember the first time you said that, and at first it caught me exactly like you did. Like, it was a little surprising to me, but then
Yeah.
it wasn't surprising when you really think about it. I mean, you bring your huge referral partner in, you're not going to just quit after you bring them
Nope.
in.
Nope, not at all. Absolutely.
You
All right, there's so much more. You call them shareholder meetings, but they're basically member meetings outside of the normal meeting. Talk to me about that.
Okay, in the very beginning, we felt like the culture was a little broken, and so we decided to have a shareholder meeting where we invite the chapter to meet after, really it's in the evening hours, more like a happy hour kind of thing, and dinner, and we send out a anonymous survey where they fill it out, and then we literally go over the answers to the survey. And so we did that very early on, and I remember there were 6 of us that showed up. This is when the chapter was about 40. 6 of us that showed up. 3 were on the leadership team. One guy thought it was just a happy hour, didn't know what he signed up for. That guy was the most impactful guy. He said, "Oh,
Mm,
I didn't know what this was." He said, "But what I'll tell you is I golf with a bunch of my buddies, and one of them belongs to this networking group, and we can't golf during his time because like he'll get kicked out." He said, "But with us, like I can miss whenever, and I won't get kicked out." He was like, "Because all I have to do is send a sub, or we don't kick anybody out because of attendance." And when he said that, I was the president. When he said that, it really made me mad, but it was because I knew he was right. And so that day, we drew a line in the sand. It was our
good.
biggest takeaway. And we said, we're going to enforce the attendance policy starting today. We
It
kicked
makes a huge difference. I've been seeing this for decades. It makes a gigantic difference in results.
that day. We said we were going to add 10 so we could get rid of the bottom 10. We kicked out one guy. Everybody took note. He was a high performer, but he was not coming to the meetings. He had a beach house and he was headed to the beach early on Thursday, and we kicked him out, and everybody changed and they rose to the occasion. We didn't have to take anybody else out, and that's what started happening. We gained 10, we kept them, and we didn't Like the
What a
performance
difference.
standards just changed that day. It was all because of that guy. I'll never forget him.
Can I just adjust? We kicked them out too. We opened their classification. Just the little gentler.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
No. I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. All right. So I want to talk about how long it does to do a meeting, and there's so much more I want to hear from you. But the third topic you wanted to cover was setting performance standards. So do you want to touch upon that?
Yeah. So this chapter came to me and said, hey, we want to be a little bit better and we want to set some performance standards. And they came to me and said, we want to put members on probation and have a plan to work with them if they're in the yellow for 2 consecutive months.
Mm.
And if they're in the red or the black, they wanted to be a little bit more aggressive to get them out of the red or the black within 30 days. And so I said, well, we got to put this out there. We want to give everybody 60 days written notice before we implement this. And we did. And that's when the chapter exploded and probably went from 110 to 130. And I will be upfront with you during the pause, the great pause, as you like to call it.
Yeah.
We really lightened up on our standards. And when we went back to in person, we had to tighten up again.
Yeah.
And I was scared, like we lost some people during that tightening up on their own accord, like because they didn't like having to come back, like they got used to being on Zoom. But the chapter rebounded from that so quickly and went right back up to 150.
Look, if you expect the best from people, you get it. And if you expect less than the best, you get it. The key is to apply the policies and the rules like you're talking about, more like Mandela than Attila. You know, it's tough love, but you got to draw the line in the sand. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve what you guys have achieved, which is just amazing to me. It blows my mind. I'm so impressed. We're almost out of time. Can you talk for just a minute or so about the fact that it does take longer to do a meeting of 150 people? It's a little over 2 hours, officially an hour and a half, but you give them a little wiggle room in there, I think.
Officially an hour and 45 minutes of the
Yeah.
exact meeting. But if you add on the open networking, you're talking about a total of 2 hours that we expect them to be there. We do, just because it's a lot in the South, we feed people. So this is a lunch chapter in person.
Yeah.
So we open up the food line 30 minutes before you're expected to be there. The culture of this chapter is they want to get there early. So
Yeah.
they break bread together, like at tables with each other before the meeting starts.
Mhm.
So it is a little bit of a different culture with people wanting to get there, 30 to 45 minutes before the meeting starts.
Well, Shirley, I'm just so impressed. I'm so proud of this chapter. And for anyone, any place in the world that says, you're different in your country, we can't do it here, you're clearly an example of the fact that it can be done everywhere, not just Asia, not just Europe, not just South America, but in the US where BNI started. We can do it just like everyone else around the world. I'm so proud of you and proud of your region.
Thank you so much. I'm really proud of them as well.
Just before I hand it back to Priscilla, I just want to say again, $21 million. And thank you for closed business in the last 12 months. If that alone isn't the argument to grow a chapter, I don't know what is. Shirley, thank you so much for being on BNI Podcast.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Over to you, Priscilla.
Yeah, well, thank you both. That was fantastic. This podcast is sponsored by MisnerAudioprograms.com. These audio programs will provide you with the tools and the inspiration to powerfully enhance your BNI experience. So check out the great material that's available to you at MisnerAudioprograms.com and then use the promo code IVAN50 for 50% off of everything. All of the proceeds go to the BNI Foundation. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI Podcast.